Well, welcome back, everyone. Last week, we talked about leading yourself on your worst day. And I think we talked about some of the practical things that you could do to lead yourself on your worst day, because often that's when your leadership is revealed, not when you're at your best, as we said, but when you're actually having the worst day ever. So what is it you can do?
Yeah. So just such an important point. And, this becomes not just about leadership at the office, but leadership in life, right? So many things come into play with how we show up. It's really what the, really simplistic way to put this is, how are you showing up on your best day? How are you showing up on your worst day? And as we've touched on before, people saying, oh, we want an authentic leader. We want an authentic leader. They want the authentic leader on the best day version of the authentic, not the worst day version of the authentic, right? And so that's what we're talking about here, is how do you make sure that you show up in what's the best way for the circumstances, right? And so there is, Andre, I know I've shared this story with you before about a client that I had a few years ago. And this person, we'll call him Bill, not his actual name, but we'll call him Bill, Bill had developed a reputation for borderline bullying. And so that they had brought me in to work with him. Now, Bill would have been mid-50s at the time, very kind person, very passionate about what he did, and very intelligent. And those two can sometimes be a bit of a combination. And he was big, he had a big booming voice. And so what would happen in meetings is that he would get passionate about the topic. His mind would race ahead from where they were. And next thing we know, he started to communicate a little more initially passionately, and then very quickly, much more passionately, if you will, assertively, borderline aggressively than was appropriate for the setting. So
yeah, bombastic.
There we go. That would be none of us know people like that in the world, do we? Not at all. And so, after we kind of worked through the feedback part of it, there became this realization for himself. I had no idea I was coming across that way, blind spot, right? Because that intelligence and that passion had been a strength and still is a strength, but it started to become a liability. And so then we worked on it about how does he show up even when it started to go the wrong direction. And so what we realized for him as we kind of rewound it was that as the meeting would be going along, at some point in the meeting, things would escalate and he could start to feel his ears warming up, right? And he said, that became the trigger. He knew that once that started happening, if the heat radiated from here to here, by the time it got to here, literally, boom, right off it went. Yeah. And that's where the bombastic Bill would show up. And so worked with him and going, okay, what do you need to have enough self-awareness and be centered and grounded enough in the meeting that you need to be able to tune in when that starts to heat up. And that then becomes the clue. When that heats up, you shut up. All right, because nothing after that point is going to go well. Just stop talking sometimes with more than enough to just let it reset, and then you can re-engage. And it's really about becoming mindful. Yes. And so, Andre, I know you've done a lot of work in this area of mindfulness, one of the topics we love to talk about. I'd love if you could bring in, your perspective on mindfulness, let's say, in a challenging situation like that.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. I ran a mindfulness business for many years, and I learned a huge amount by the practice of mindfulness. But one of the exercises we did, which is kind of relevant over here, which I loved, was called Name That Emotion, right? So it's really a 3-step process. So the first one is name that emotion. What am I feeling right now? Am I feeling frustrated, bitter, defensive, angry, sad, great, amazing, energized, or in Bill's case, passionate? And then the second part of that is a 3-second pause. Right? That 3-second pause is such a critical reset that we have. And often in mindfulness, we talk about 3 mindful breaths, right? And it doesn't have to be that obvious, but that 3-second pause can make a huge difference. And then the third step is when you do that 3-second pause, you take back some agency, if you like. You take back choice, because right now you have a choice
Yes.
on the response that's going to serve that person best. So I think back to the quote, which is often wrongly attributed to Viktor Frankl, and nobody quite knows where it came from. And I know Stephen Covey did a lot of work with it, but I think that's so relevant in terms of what we're talking about right now, in terms of the example of Bill, and also about us when we're in there. And the quote was this: between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and freedom. Love that quote. Whoever wrote it, people think it was Viktor Frankl. It wasn't. Someone did. But I think that is exactly what we're talking about here, is when you're having this bad state, if you like, what are the 3 steps? Name the emotion, 3 mindful breaths, choose your response.
And one of my favorite quotes as well, because for most of us, it's stimulus react, right? It's stimulus reactivity, reaction, right? What we want to do is, like that meeting with Bill, that whole idea was, Bill, when you get to that point, you're now just reacting to whatever's going on. Let's wind it back, deep breaths in. Oh, I'm feeling overwhelmed. Oh, I'm feeling frustrated. Oh, I'm feeling marginalized. Oh, I'm da-da-da, right? Whatever that is, wind it back in. Okay, how do I want to respond now? What do I want to say, and being intentional about it, as opposed to letting your habitual bad emotions take over. We want to be responsive. And in today's world, all of us could use a lot more of being responsive and much less being reactive.
Well put, Darren. So here's the homework. First of all, think of yourself when you are having a bad day, and think about what you can do to self-regulate. The 3 steps we talk about: name the emotion, 3 mindful breaths, choose your response, not react. But also, part of our request to you is, if you know someone who's having a bad day, share this video and the previous one with them. It may just help pull them out of having that bad day.
Yeah. And just one last little tidbit of that, if I could. One of the best strategies, in addition to getting out of a bad day, connect with a friend.
Yes.
Just feel that sense of connection. That alone can, help to right the ship a little bit. So use this as a way to connect with a friend.
Love it. Thank you, Darren. See you next week.
Great to connect with you, my friend. Be well.
Thanks, Burma.